Gen Z MAGA men, they say the number one indicator for success is having children. For women that voted for Harris, that was ranked next to last. So obviously a very big divergent. But these cohorts also have different takes on marriage, dating, and even what success looks like. And all of these things are just so wildly different based on, gender and how they voted. What does this say to me? It says that the birth rate will continue to plummet to hell, because how will men and women come together to actually date and talk or even have friendships? I also believe, based on this, is that the loneliness epidemic for dudes will continue to grow into a pandemic, something that I have been saying. I highlighted having emotional stability for each of these cohorts because it was very interesting to me. For women that voted for Harris, it ranked number 3. Men that voted for Harris, it ranked number 4. Women who voted for Trump is all the way down here at number 10. Men that voted for Trump is all the way down here at number 12. And that just stood out to me how far down this ranked. And what stood out to me again, this being married for Trump women. But keep in mind, the oldest Gen Z person is like 28. So that kind of makes sense. Women are not just rushing out wanting to be married these days. We know that babies are an anchor for women, and I do think that that is why these dudes want to have babies much higher than anybody else, because they want to anchor a woman down. They know that they're not getting a woman simply because they're amazing. They got such a great personality. They have so much emotional stability. We know that they're not winning women over that way. So they're just going to continue to try to strip women's rights, make sure we don't have access to contraception, and then settle them down with some babies so that a woman might stick and stay, because they don't have the emotional stability to keep a woman and have it be a mutual support type of thing. So I just wanted to pull that out. What do you see in these rankings that kind of interest you and that we should hone in on a little bit more? The woman that posted this in the feminism subreddit gave us some of her personal notes. Both men who voted for Harris and Trump rank having children and marriage as more important than women in both of those categories. Men who voted for Trump view having emotional stability as second to last in importance, to no one's surprise. Last, it says, interesting how women who voted for Trump ranked achieving financial independence as their number 1. This contrasts with what you would expect of women with traditional or conservative views. That's because they have probably seen what being a conservative woman and financially dependent on a man, what that could do for a woman's financial future. Indigo says, male, voted for Trump, rating emotional stability at rock bottom in importance really tells you everything you need to know. And then, well, I guess so in you says, they genuinely believe that they are already emotionally stable. They don't recognize unbridled rage as an emotion because it's their default setting and therefore normal. They have the emotional intelligence of a turnip. Carbana Tight says, men rebranding anger as not an emotion is one of the most successful and awful marketing strategies of all time. This was posted in the Childfree subreddit. Let's look at some of the comments under this one as well. This was posted in the Childfree subreddit as well. It was posted all over the place. But this person says, shame on anyone who voted for Trump, but especially Gen Z men. Thankfully, I don't know any, even as a Gen Z male myself, but these seem like the meanest human beings possible. Cavalish says, I think it's going to come as quite a shock to these young men that unlike the days of yore, they seem to yearn for, only one of the genders is going to have the power to make decisions about children and marriage, and it ain't going to be them. Ford Forum says, I went through utter hell as a kid with living with congenital heart disease, and between that, plus struggling to find work that isn't gigs or temp jobs, there is no way I want kids of my own. The second I get a full-time job, I plan on getting snipped, but I'm leery about it because I live with family and they hound me about having kids. Ferrum, this person at the bottom says, don't tell them. I'm glad that so many people are not just having kids simply because their parents say they have to. Forward Form says, I'm a terrible liar, and if they see that I'm walking funny, they might start asking questions. Once I find a job again, I'll look at getting one since I'll be away from home a lot more. This person says, see the doctor's list on the sidebar. Mine was $450, no insurance at 22, single, no kids. They do even do sutureless now. So obviously these are some men talking back and forth, which is good because they are taking their sterilization into their own hands. I talked about this article back in January of 2024 when the Business Insider dropped this because this gender war and the divergence of men and women. This has been going on for a while. So let's look at what they were saying back in 2024, January 2024. Something strange is happening between Gen Z men and women. Over the past decade, poll after poll has found that young people are growing more and more divided by gender on a host of political issues. Since 2014, women between the ages of 18 and 29 have steadily become more liberal each year, while young men have not. Today, female Gen Zers are more likely than their male counterparts to vote, care more about political issues, and participate in social movements and protests. While the gender gap is an enduring feature of American politics, at no time in the past quarter century has there been such a rapid divergence between the views of young men and women. The startling speed of the change suggests something more significant is going on than just new demographic patterns such as rising rates of education or declining adherence to a religion. The change points to some kind of cataclysmal event. After speaking with more than 20 Gen Zers, my colleagues at the Survey Center on American Life and I found that among women, no event was more influential to their political development than the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement could have been the reason why men are becoming more right-leaning and more anti-feminist. Now, let's look at this graph. Young women are becoming more liberal. On this graph, women are the yellow line, men are the blue line. It says share of American men and women ages 18 to 29 who identify as liberal. So you see over here in 2000s, the numbers were much closer. You see, what is this? About 27%, 28%, or maybe 28 and 29%. So very, very close. Men dipped down in 2000, and that might have been around the wartime. But you see, always, at all times, women have been more liberal than men. And now you see women all the way up here. It really jumped dramatically. And that's with the Me Too movement. Women jumped way radically higher, and men dropped down just as low. So the gap between men and women as far as liberal and conservatism is so wide. But while women were rallying together, many Gen Z men began to feel like society was turning against them. As recently as 2019, less than 1/3 of young men said that they faced discrimination, according to Pew. But today, close to half of young men believe they face at least some discrimination. In a 2020 survey by the research organization PRRI, half of the men agreed with this statement. These days, society seems to punish men just for acting like men. It increasingly feels like Gen Z men and women are living on different planets, each guided by the belief that they are navigating uniquely hostile terrain, and understanding why is crucial to bridging the gap. Do you believe that it is possible to bridge this gap? I do not. I think that it is broken. I think that this bridge has fallen down into the water, is crumbled into like 39 different pieces, is not going to be bridged or even glued back together. Men shift to the right. As women's political priorities have solidified, young men's priorities have melted into mush. Surveys consistently show that young men are far less likely than women to say any particular issue is personally important to them. A survey we conducted last year found that young women express statistically significant greater concern for 11 out of 15 different issues, including drug addiction, crime, climate change, and gun violence. This part is really important. There was not a single issue that young men cared about significantly more than young women. This is the graph they were talking about, where they were asking young men and women if they cared about these particular issues. And you can see women care more about these issues on every single thing, more so than men. The ones that I pulled out thinking were important were the gun violence and the affordability of healthcare. So those top two. And then towards the middle where it says crime and racism, so many men say that that's not particularly an issue. And then towards the bottom, I thought that this was important. Only 27% of men thought that the loneliness and isolation were issues that should be cared about. And we've been talking about the male loneliness epidemic for a while, and these dudes simply don't care. And since they don't care, I highly doubt that they will ever tackle this as an issue. Which things on this graph jump out to you? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. All right, it says young men are also unhappy. For a growing number, feminism has less to do with promoting gender equality and more to do with simply attacking men. A 2022 survey by the Southern Poverty Law Center found that 46% of Democratic men under 50 agreed that feminism has done more harm than good. Even more Republican men agreed. In our recent poll, roughly 1 in 4 male Gen Zers said they have experienced more gender discrimination than older men, and less than half of Gen Z men identified as feminists, with only half saying they support the Me Too movement compared to 72% of women. I didn't do the whole article, but I did want to end with this. While women have turned to the left for answers to their problems, men are finding support on the right. Trump helped redefine conservatism as a distinctly masculine ideology, stoking grievances and directing young men's frustrations towards liberals and feminists. There are signs the message is resonating. Republican affiliation among white men aged 18 to 24 jumped from 28% in 2019 to 41% in 2023, according to a Harvard Youth poll. Outside politics, right-leaning figures such as the top G, the top potato, Leon Scum, and Jordan Peterson are attracting young men looking for an ideological home. So this just shows you, they were talking about this early in 2024. But what I'm seeing, though, the polling is saying these young men are increasingly frustrated. But that's also because the economy is poopy and these men can't afford to even live on their own. And now that women are saying, I'm not going to live with you. I'm not going to date you. I don't even want to talk to you. They are growing increasingly upset and frustrated. It's going to be a self-fulfilling cycle. They're going to get lonelier and sadder and angrier, but they did this to themselves by leaning into the right and thinking that feminism was the problem instead of the government, the powers that be, and the broligarchy, Theo bros, and all of that. Anyways, this was from 2024. The other thing is from the other day. Y'all let me know what you think of this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.